Bastiodon just won a 62-player tournament, and I kind of want to just go over why and how this Pokemon did anything and won with an 8-1 record. Actually, is very, very impressive. It was in the Chaos League Sunday Slam number 8. This player had an 8-1 record, and it was with the Bastiodon. So that's very, very intriguing as always. We see the two final matchups, Terapagos, which Bastiodon does really great. And you can see tons of Terapagos that were faced in even the P2 mirror. So that's actually very, very interesting that the Bastiodon got to face up against so much Terapagos, and I'll explain why. So it was paired with a Ice Rider Calyrex team. This is pretty much a standard Calyrex team. You see the Calyrex, the Porygon 2 Instant, and Amoonguss core. The very, very strong core. The Clear Amulet just to dodge the Intimidate ability has one, and then the Terra Fire. This is the dodge Wisp. I've seen a lot going into fire. You still resist the mirror match, so like Terra Fire is not exactly bad. I saw a lot of Terra Water too. You are weak to Surging Strikes, which could be concerning considering so much Surging Strikes are in the meta, and that's why we see the addition of Wellspring, Mask, Ogerpon, which makes a ton of sense. Protect, Trick Room, Glacial Lance, and High Horsepower. This defines bread and butter. It doesn't get much better than this. Ice and ground coverage has been in the game since the beginning of time. If you don't believe me, look up the first tournament winning team. It was ran with, I think it was a Rhydon, and it had the Ice Punch and like Earthquake or something of that nature. But the coverage is just so good because the only thing, like, ground is so good into VGC, and then the only thing resisting it is flying is immune. Is you have ice, and then like steel and fire, and you have the high horsepower. So being able to have this combination of moves on a Pokemon that can boost its on attack is very, very good. Then you have the P2 with a Violite. Download just to get the attack boost. This is Terra Fairy instead of the Terra Poison that we're used to seeing. So that's very intriguing to see the Terra Fairy. Trick Room, Recover, Terra Blast, and Thunderbolt. It makes sense to drop Ice Beam, we're being honest, because you have Glacial Lance now. Usually this Pokemon runs Ice Beam for those Lando Eyes and you know, the Wellspring Ogerpons and stuff of that nature in Amoonguss. But Thunderbolt does make sense, does make a little sense to add. I'm wondering what kind of coverage. I guess maybe Wellspring kind of gives this team a bit of an issue. Yeah, it makes sense actually, Bastiodon. So I guess to hit a Wellspring that's boosted up, and then Terra Blast, Terra Normal, just gives this thing 3 moves, because in the normal form, you just stab Terra Blast, and then when you Terra, you get a Fairy move. So really you have normal, Fairy, and Electric coverage, plus the ability to recover and set Trick Room. Bulky Pokemon can get an attack boost, do crazy damage. And Fluttermane's fallen off, so I guess that's why they changed off of Poison to Fairy. So that makes a lot of sense. And with all the Psychic, actually, yeah. Well, I'm sure with all the Psychic, like Expanding Force, Calyrex, or just Psychic on Calyrex, this actually makes a lot more sense to go Terra Fairy now. So that explains why the Terra Poison is no longer like kind of as good. Moving on, we have AV Incineroar. Usually you see this thing like Assault Vest, or Citrus or Goggles. So AV is very interesting with the Terra Grass to, you know, help for the mirror match in Amoonguss, I imagine. It does kind of suck versus Calyrex though in the mirror if you do Terra, but I don't think you would Terra in certain positions. Fake Out, Flare Blitz, Knockoff, and the U-Turn over the Parting Shot, because this is damaging. Very, very good, strong damaging move. I'm sure this thing has good attack investment over like some of the defenses. You're going to drop some and go attack, especially with AV. You probably drop some of that Spadef and you can just put it in attack, and you get really strong knockoffs and Flare Blitzes and U-Turns out to your opponent. Then we have the Amoonguss. That's it. Amoonguss utilizing the Citrus Berry, so that's why this makes sense. Although I do think Goggles makes a lot of sense on this Pokemon as well. But you have the Regenerator. Terra Water just is one of the best Terras. It's been around forever. It did go Terra Fairy for a while, but I do like Terra Water a lot better. You know, Chin Pao, Ice Rider, things of that nature. It just really helps out. Spore, Raging Powder, Pollen Puff, and the Clear Smog. Clear Smog makes sense, like to clear some of these boosts from like the mirror match. Also, if you could force Terra on like Zacian, Zamazenta, you could do that. If they come, it's just very good at stab coverage. It's not as powerful as Sludge Bomb, but it's good. Pollen Puff is so annoying on this team to just heal up this Ice Rider. And even like Bastiodon, if you can heal that up under Trick Room, that makes a lot of sense. Rage Powder to redirect, and the Spore to put things to sleep. Probably the best move in VGC, if not one of the best moves in VGC. Up next, we have the Wellspring Ogerpon. And like I said, this actually makes sense. At first glance, it doesn't make sense. But one of the biggest weaknesses to the Terra Fire Ice Rider that I've noticed in testing, because I've been testing around with Ice Rider, and I've been testing around with Ghost Rider, Terapagos. I've been testing around with Miraidon and Koraidon, just learning all the format. And one of the biggest things I noticed is I did like the Terra Fire, right? Because you see trainers like even Wolflick put Will-O-Wisp on their Incineroar. and then they'll basically just come in and wisp your rider, and it's just kind of useless from there. So being immune to that's huge while still resisting the mirror, because that's one of the hugest things you need to do, right? With the Ice Rider Calyrex, you need to still resist the mirror because you don't want to lose this mirror match. So having the resist is nice. However, one of the biggest weaknesses I noticed was Urshifu Rapid Strike, right? If you get Urshifu Rapid Strike, this thing just can't kill it. And then if you are forced into a position where it's like Ensign plus Urshi under Trick Room, not only is Glacial Lance not doing much, but then they could Will-O-Wisp. I mean, you have options like Rage Powder and stuff, but like this thing is Terra Grass, right? So it's gonna dodge the Rage Powder and go for the Wisp over into the Rider. Now, again, I don't like that play because, like I said, Grass, Glacial Lance, but you're having to also stick in front of, most of the time it's Will-O-Wisp Ensign, and read that they're going to Terra if they are Terra Grass, and then click Glacial Lance into Ensign and a board of, like, you know, the Urshifu or whatever. That doesn't feel really good. It's definitely a read. And so I can understand why this Ogerpon is here now. This is to support the Ice Rider, especially if it gets outside of Trick Room and it's Terrafire, because then that Urshifu could kind of run away with the game. Standard set, Spiky Shield, Follow Me, Cudgel. Well, I say standard, but Woodhammer is actually a different addition. I wonder if this Pokemon is ran slower with more attack investment. Not worried about. Yeah, actually, no. This Pokemon is definitely on this team ran slower. Probably really extremely bulky and just there to kind of help with the Urshifu. And you're not worried about outspeeding the Lando Eye because this team is Trick Room. It's going to outspeed. Last but not least, the most interesting piece on this team is Bastiodon, and I really love this pick. I love this Pokemon. I love the generation. So safety goggles, you say no to Amoonguss. This is huge, right? Because this Pokemon is there to check Terapagos mainly. And it's a good way to break Terapagos. You can also break these Porygon 2s in the mirror, or at least force the Porygon 2. And the move coverage is absolutely insane. Soundproof is the ability that Bastiodon's choosing to use over Sturdy, and it makes sense, actually. Soundproof dodges sound-based moves, and then they have the Terra Ghost. So basically, things like Hyper Voice can't touch you. So you outspeed Ursaluna Blood Moon under Trick Room because you're 30 base speed. So that's important. So you could just Iron Defense or Body Press those Ursaluna Blood Moons. They can't Hyper Voice spread you. You could just kind of follow me, get a position of this, or, you know, even just having this pressure under Trick Room means that you could chunk away those opposing Ursaluna Blood Moon, which can be very scary. A lot of these Calyrex Shadow or Ice Rider teams tend to actually put a Blood Moon on the team because, I mean, it makes sense, right? It's Terra normal. You can have the Furgraf supporting it, and then basically you can set up a board state of Furgraf plus the Ursaluna Blood Moon and then Calyrex Shadow, and those matchups can't touch you. So the fact that you're soundproof, you can't be hit by the spread Hyper Voice, and you can just body press, chip it, it's actually very, very good. And another notable thing about soundproof is that you dodge Parting Shot off Incineroar. It is a sound-based move, so that means Incineroar can't just Parting Shot and keep cycling you. It will have to manually rotate, which is very, very, very crucial and very important for the mirror match. And the support moves on Bastiodon is absolutely perfect. You get Wide Guard for the mirror match. You get Wide Guard for all of these Pokemon that want to spread a massive damage, such as like Kyogre, Groudon, Ice Rider, Shadow Rider, even the Terapagos. You can just Wide Guard that thing. So like even if Terapagos sets up, you get this thing under Trick Room, like Wide Guard, it can no longer Terra and do massive damage. It has to stay out of its Terra form. And then this is the big part right here. You get the Iron Defense Body Press. This is huge because most of these spread moves are special, such as Kyogre. Groudon's physical, but the Kyogre and the Ghost Horse are special spreads, and while the Ice Rider and the Groudon are physical. So being able to boost up, this is mainly just sincerely to check the Terapagos that are running around, which is huge because it really struggles to deal with Iron Defense Body Press, especially getting this Pokemon under Trick Room and having something slower that can chip that Terapagos ability, right? Because once you chip off its ability, then you can hit it super effective, and these body presses are just doing massive damage. There's also like a Trick Room sweeper, because once you get an Iron Defense up or two, you can just start sweeping with these body presses. You can heal it up with Pollen Puff, and you can just start sweeping with this. Very, very interesting piece. I'm sure this isn't a main centerpiece of the team, but it mainly comes to help check the Terapagos, which can make this team a nightmare, especially with the balance pivoting that it can do. And lastly, Foul Play. Huge, huge, huge move for this Pokemon to run. 4 times weak to the Calyrex Shadow Rider, so you're immediately just chipping that thing down or getting a KO. But then also right here, Ice Rider Calyrex, huge for the mirror match. If this thing gets any kind of boost under Trick Room, let's say you Terra Grassed and somehow, or for some reason, and it cleans up, right, and it gets a boost off, or it just gets a natural boost from it just being, you know, part of the mirror match, this Foul Play can actually punish the Ice Rider Calyrex because it's boosting its attack stat is super effective. You're going to force the Terra onto it. and it could just basically foul play without worrying about the Amoonguss Rage Powder due to it having these safety goggles. I am actually in love with the look of this team, and I definitely want to test it out. Well, let me know, guys, what your guys' thoughts are in the comment section down below on this Bastiodon team, and if you would like to run something similar to this, or if you have some similar Pokemon that are teched out kind of like this Pokemon, let me know down in the comment section. I would love to review them, love to go over them. This is going to be the end of the video, though, so until next time, I'll see you on the next video.